The notification chimed at 3:17 in the morning. I watched my wife's phone light up beside the bed, her screen casting blue shadows across her sleeping face. The message appeared and vanished behind her lock screen, but not before I caught the sender's name, Marcus. My stomach dropped like a stone through ice-cold water. She stirred, reaching blindly for the device. Her fingers moved with practiced stealth across the screen, muscle memory guiding her through whatever secret conversation demanded attention at this ungodly hour. The soft tapping of her thumbs against glass filled the silence between us like tiny hammers driving nails into a coffin. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of late-night shopping trips for someone else's apartment. 3 weeks of hushed phone calls that ended the moment I entered a room. 3 weeks of her helping this mysterious work friend find housing and navigate paperwork. The friend who apparently needed guidance at midnight, needed support during work hours, needed constant reassurance through text messages that made my wife smile in ways I hadn't seen in months. The lamp message had arrived while she showered yesterday evening. A simple notification about furniture delivery from a number I didn't recognize. When I handed her the phone afterward, mentioning the text, her face went white as hospital sheets. She stammered something about helping coordinate deliveries, but the panic in her eyes told a different story entirely. Marcus. The name echoed in my skull like a funeral bell. 20 years ago, during her college days, she'd mentioned him exactly twice. First time, the boy who broke her heart so thoroughly she couldn't eat for weeks. Second time, the reason she'd learned to guard herself against charming liars. Now he was back, threaded himself through our marriage like poison through bloodstream. She rolled away from me, clutching the phone against her chest. Her breathing remained steady, performatively even, the rhythm of someone pretending to sleep while their mind raced. In the darkness, I listened to the soft vibrations of incoming messages, each but another crack in the foundation of our life together. Morning brought coffee and casual deflection. When I asked about her phone buzzing all night, she laughed, a sound like glass breaking softly. Work friend drama, she said, not meeting my eyes. You know how women can be. But the tension in her shoulders betrayed her, the way she angled her body away from me while checking messages throughout breakfast. The classic helpless boyfriend routine. I'd seen it before. Witness friends fall victim to the same manipulation. Some lost soul reaches out to a taken woman, painting himself as confused, overwhelmed, desperately needing guidance only she could provide. The hook, making her feel special, chosen, essential. The trap, creating emotional intimacy through shared problems that mysteriously required private discussion. When I explained this pattern to her, she exploded. You're being paranoid and controlling. Her voice pitched higher, defensive anger masking guilt. I'm helping an old friend who's going through a difficult time. Since when is kindness a crime? She accused me of jealousy, of trying to isolate her from friends, of making her feel guilty for showing basic human compassion. Gaslighting. The word hung between us like smoke from a house fire, but I'd already seen enough. The second message that evening carried a small red heart emoji at the end. Just a tiny symbol, barely noticeable, tucked after mundane words about apartment hunting. That heart confirmed everything. This wasn't friendship, wasn't innocent assistance, wasn't the charitable help she claimed to offer. My wife was having an emotional affair, and Marcus was pulling her deeper into his web with every passing hour. Thursday morning arrived with an invitation wrapped in false innocence. Marcus finally got his apartment set up, she announced over scrambled eggs, her voice carrying forced lightness. I thought maybe we could swing by this evening. See how everything turned out after all the help. She buttered her toast with deliberate precision, avoiding my gaze while delivering what she believed was a clever test. The audacity stole my breath. She wanted to parade me through another man's private space, force me to witness the fruits of their secret collaboration. This wasn't about showing off interior design. This was boundary testing, seeing how far she could push before I snapped. More insidiously, she was trying to normalize his presence in our lives, make me complicit in their emotional entanglement. I'll pass, I said, watching her face crumble with disappointment. Work's been brutal lately. Friday dissolved into a blur of constant phone activity. She texted during dinner, smiled at private jokes I wasn't privy to, excused herself for quick calls that stretched into 20-minute conversations behind closed doors. Her fingers danced across the screen with increasing frequency, each message exchange lighting up her features with an enthusiasm I hadn't inspired in months. The apartment visit never materialized, but their digital relationship flourished without interruption. She carried her phone everywhere, bathroom, kitchen, even our evening walk around the neighborhood. When I commented on her attachment to the device, she laughed again, that same brittle sound. He's having landlord issues. I'm just being supportive. Saturday brought shopping preparations for our anniversary trip to Napa Valley. We'd planned this getaway for months, booked the vineyard tours, reserved dinner at restaurants we dreamed of trying. But her focus remained elsewhere, diverted by constant notifications that made her eyes sparkle with secret pleasure. At Nordstrom, she selected a black dress I'd never seen before. Silk that clung to curves, neckline that dipped provocatively, fabric that whispered promises against skin. For our anniversary dinner, she said, but the way she photographed herself in the fitting room mirror suggested a different audience entirely. The dress disappeared into our closet, like evidence awaiting trial. Sunday evenings shattered whatever illusions remained. We sat across from each other at our kitchen table, Chinese takeout containers scattered between us like tiny white coffins. She picked at her low mane, phone face down beside her plate, but commanding her attention nonetheless. Every few minutes, the screen would illuminate, and her eyes would flick toward it with magnetic pull. "Everything okay?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She hesitated, chopsticks suspended midair. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." Her voice carried the weight of rehearsed confession. "Marcus has been going through some emotional stuff. His divorce, starting over, all the changes. He mentioned having some unfinished business from our past. Things he never got closure on." The words hung in the air like smoke signals announcing disaster. "What kind of closure?" I kept my voice level professional, the tone I used during difficult client meetings. He wondered if we could spend some time together before our trip, just one evening, to talk through everything and finally close that chapter of his life. She met my eyes for the first time all day, searching for permission to betray our marriage. It would help him move forward, put the past to rest. The euphemism struck me like physical blows. One evening, close that chapter, put the past to rest. She couldn't even articulate what she was really asking. Couldn't admit she wanted my blessing to sleep with another man 48 hours before our anniversary. What exactly does one evening involve? I pressed, watching her scramble for explanations that wouldn't sound like what they obviously were. She faltered, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for water. Just talking, working through old feelings, helping him understand why things ended the way they did. The lies tumbled out in a desperate rush. Nothing inappropriate, just closure. But she couldn't define closure, couldn't explain what one night would accomplish that 20 years hadn't already resolved. The more she talked, the deeper she dug her own grave, each word another shovel of dirt on our marriage. I sat there, listening to my wife of 15 years ask permission to cheat, watching her rap infidelity in the language of therapy and healing. The woman across from me had become a stranger, someone willing to destroy everything we built for the chance to revisit college fantasies, a man who'd already broken her heart once. The Chinese food grew cold between us while she waited for an answer I would never give. Monday morning, she left without saying goodbye. I watched from the bedroom window as she backed out the driveway, her movements sharp with unspoken anger. She'd spent the night in our guest room after I refused to grant permission for her closure evening, punishing me with silence for denying her request to cheat. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was angry at my lack of cooperation in her betrayal. By 9 o'clock, I'd made my first executive decision. The Napa Valley reservation died with a single phone call, $2,300 evaporating without a flicker of regret. The vineyard's cancellation policy meant complete financial loss, but money seemed insignificant compared to the satisfaction of destroying her romantic fantasy. The bank proved more accommodating than expected. As primary account holder on all our joint finances, I possessed the legal authority to close everything immediately. checking accounts, savings, credit cards. I methodically severed every financial connection that bore her name. The customer service representatives expressed concern about such drastic action, but their protests couldn't penetrate my crystalline focus. My brother-in-law's law office occupied the 14th floor of downtown's most prestigious building. Jake had married my sister 8 years ago, building his practice on divorce cases that turned ordinary people into battlefield generals. He listened to my story without interruption, occasionally nodding as familiar patterns emerged from my narrative. "How quickly can we file?" I asked, sliding a manila folder across his mahogany desk. "Today, if you want to move fast." His fingers drummed against the leather desktop. "But there's something else you should know about your friend Marcus." The background check had been routine, standard procedure for any divorce involving potential custody issues or asset disputes. Marcus Williams carried a criminal record that painted him in decidedly darker colors than the helpless romantic my wife believed she was rescuing. Domestic violence, 2 separate incidents, different women, both resulted in restraining orders. Jake's voice carried the clinical detachment of someone who'd seen too many similar cases. The most recent was 18 months ago. Charges were dropped when the victim relocated out of state. The information hit like ice water in my veins. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was walking directly into the arms of a documented abuser, someone who'd already demonstrated a capacity for violence against women who disappointed him. "There's more," Jake continued, consulting his notes. "Detective Morrison downtown says Marcus has been actively searching for your wife through social media for months. This wasn't coincidental contact. It was a targeted campaign." The pieces assembled themselves into a horrifying picture. Marcus hadn't stumbled back into her life through random chance or mutual friends. He'd hunted her down, studied her routines, crafted his approach with predatory precision. The helpless boyfriend routine was performance art, designed to exploit her nurturing instincts and draw her away from the safety of our marriage. That afternoon, I transformed into a man my wife wouldn't recognize. Every item she owned found its way into labeled cardboard boxes. Clothes organized by season, books alphabetized by author, personal effects cataloged with methodical precision. Each box received a detailed inventory list, typed and printed, professional enough for legal documentation. The locksmith arrived at 4 o'clock, replacing every deadbolt and handle with military-grade security. New keys felt foreign in my palm, their sharp edges a tangible reminder that she no longer belonged in this space. I changed my phone number next, then systematically updated every password on accounts she'd ever accessed. By evening, I sat alone in our favorite restaurant, the one where we'd celebrated promotions and anniversaries, where we'd talk about buying a bigger house and starting a family. The waiter recognized me, asked about my wife's absence with genuine concern. I ordered champagne, Dom Perignon, the good stuff we'd been saving for special occasions, and toasted my liberation in solitude. The bubbles tickled my throat as I raised my glass to the empty chair across from me. Freedom tasted better than I'd expected, crisp and clean and full of possibility. For the first time in months, I felt capable of breathing deeply, no longer suffocated by lies and manipulation. My phone remained blissfully silent throughout dinner, the new number ensuring she couldn't reach me even if panic set in. Somewhere across town, she was probably texting Marcus about her cruel, controlling husband who'd refused to understand her needs. Let her seek comfort in his arms. She'd discover soon enough what kind of man she'd chosen over me. The wine paired perfectly with my newfound clarity. She returned home to find her life packed into cardboard monuments. The key wouldn't turn. She tried again, jiggling the handle with increasing desperation before hammering her fist against the door. Through the peephole, I watched her face cycle through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror as reality crashed over her like a cold wave. The letter waited on the doorstep, sealed in legal-sized envelope with her name typed across cream-colored paper. Inside, Jake's firm letter had announced the filing of divorce proceedings alongside a comprehensive list of her financial accounts. All closed, all inaccessible, all evidence of my surgical precision in dismantling our shared life. Her phone calls started within minutes. The new number sent every attempt straight to voicemail, her voice climbing octaves with each unanswered ring. She cycled through our mutual friends, my family, even my office, painting herself as a victim of sudden, inexplicable abandonment. But I'd already made my calls, shared the truth about Marcus and her request for permission to cheat. Support evaporated faster than morning dew. Tuesday brought desperation dressed as negotiation. She camped outside my office building, intercepted me at the parking garage with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands. "This is all a misunderstanding," she pleaded, stepping into my path like a ghost demanding acknowledgement. I never meant for things to go this far. Marcus was just a friend. I stepped around her, keys already in hand. Someone who needed help? An innocent connection? Each word hit like a physical blow, stripping away her carefully constructed justifications. She followed me to my car, heels clicking against concrete in a rhythm of mounting panic. I made a mistake. I see that now. But we can work through this. 15 years of marriage deserves more than a legal letter and locked doors. The credit cards had been her first clue something was wrong. Standing in Target's checkout line, watching the cashier's face transform from routine politeness to awkward sympathy as transaction after transaction failed. The bank visit that followed had delivered the final blow. Accounts frozen, access denied, financial independence eliminated with corporate efficiency. Her parents called that evening, voices heavy with disappointment and confusion. She'd spun a tale of my sudden cruelty, my unreasonable jealousy, my refusal to discuss our problems like mature adults. But when they pressed for details, asked about the friend she'd been helping, the story crumbled under scrutiny. Wednesday escalated into harassment. She waited in the gym parking lot, followed me to the grocery store, appeared at my favorite lunch spot with the persistence of a debt collector. Security cameras captured her increasingly erratic behavior, pounding on my car windows, shouting accusations across crowded parking lots, demanding attention from anyone within earshot. The phone calls evolved into digital bombardment. Text messages flooded my old number, each one more desperate than the last. Social media became her weapon of choice, posting cryptic messages about betrayal and abandonment, fishing for sympathy from people who didn't know the whole story. Then Marcus made his appearance. Thursday evening. I found him leaning against my car in the office parking garage, arms crossed like a bouncer at an exclusive club. Up close, he looked exactly like what he was, a predator wearing the mask of wounded sensitivity. Expensive clothes couldn't hide the cold calculation in his eyes or the way his hands formed fists when he thought I wasn't looking. "We need to talk," he said, voice carrying the kind of quiet menace that made smart people step backward. "No, we don't." I kept walking, but his hand shot out, gripping my shoulder with practiced force. "You're destroying a good woman over nothing. She cares about you, wants to make this work, but you're being stubborn and cruel." His fingers tightened, applying pressure designed to intimidate, without leaving visible marks. The truth revealed itself in that moment. Marcus hadn't come to negotiate or defend honor. He'd come to eliminate competition, to clear the path between himself and my wife by whatever means necessary. The helpless boyfriend act had been pure theater, a performance designed to lure her close enough for capture. She appeared at my apartment that night, sobbing against the new locks while neighbors watched from windows. "He's not who I thought he was," she cried, words muffled by tears and shame. Marcus got angry when I told him about the divorce. Really angry. He grabbed me, said things about what I owed him after all his help. The mask had finally slipped, revealing the violent man beneath. 3 months later, the divorce papers bore my signature and hers, but victory belonged entirely to me. She'd lost her lawyer halfway through proceedings when retainer funds dried up and my financial blockade prevented further payments. Jake had been thorough in his asset protection strategy. Every account, every investment, every piece of property remained firmly in my control while she scrambled for legal representation among overworked public defenders. The settlement hearing lasted exactly 47 minutes. Her attorney, a harried recent graduate working pro bono cases, shuffled through incomplete paperwork while Jake presented our meticulously documented case. Adultery, abandonment of marital responsibilities, emotional cruelty, each charge supported by screenshots, bank records, and witness statements that painted her as an unfaithful wife who'd chosen another man over her marriage. The judge's gavel fell with finality that echoed through the sterile courtroom. I retained the house, the cars, the retirement accounts, the investment portfolio we built together over 15 years. She left with her personal belongings and a stark lesson about the cost of betrayal. Freedom tasted different than I'd expected, not sweet, but clean, sharp, like mountain air after years of breathing through gauze. I threw myself into work with renewed focus, accepting promotion I delayed for family considerations. The corner office came with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city like a conquest waiting to be claimed. Physical transformation followed mental liberation. The gym became my second home, weights and cardio burning away years of complacency. Personal trainers sculpted muscle definition I hadn't possessed since college, while nutritionists refined my diet into precision fuel. Mirrors reflected a stranger, leaner, harder, more dangerous than the man who discovered that midnight text message. Social circles expanded beyond a couple friends who dropped me during the divorce drama. Single colleagues invited me to happy hours, where conversation flowed without undertones of marital obligation. Weekend hiking groups welcomed someone who could commit to plans without checking a spouse's schedule. Dating apps populated with possibilities I'd forgotten existed. 6 months post-divorce, she made her final play. The restaurant parking lot provided neutral territory for her last-ditch reconciliation attempt. She'd lost weight, too much weight, her face gaunt with the kind of stress that aged people in dog years. The black dress from Nordstrom hung loose on diminished curves, expensive silk now looking desperate rather than seductive. "I understand now," she began, words rehearsed but trembling with genuine emotion. "Marcus used me. He manipulated everything. Made me believe I needed something I already had with you. I was stupid and selfish, and I threw away the best thing in my life for a fantasy." Her confession continued for 20 minutes, a carefully crafted speech acknowledging every mistake, accepting full responsibility, begging for a second chance to rebuild what we'd lost. She prepared answers for every objection, solutions for every problem, promises to spend however long it took earning back my trust. "I forgive you," I said when she finally stopped talking. Hope flickered in her eyes like a candle in wind. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Forgiveness is about my peace of mind, not your second chance. I kept my voice gentle but immovable, explaining the difference between internal healing and external restoration. You made choices that revealed who you really are. Marriage requires trust, and trust requires a belief that your partner will choose you when temptation arrives. You chose Marcus. She cried then, deep sobs that shook her entire frame. Part of me felt sympathy for her pain, but sympathy wasn't love, and pity wasn't foundation enough for rebuilding a life together. 2 years later, I exchanged vows with Sarah in a ceremony that celebrated commitment rather than mourning betrayal. My new wife understood loyalty not as obligation but as daily choice, devotion as action rather than mere sentiment. She'd never known Marcus, never heard his voice or felt his manipulation, never faced the test my first wife had failed so spectacularly. My ex-wife remained single, still searching for whatever she thought Marcus represented, still learning that some mistakes echo forever through the choices that follow. I occasionally heard updates through mutual acquaintances, job changes, apartment moves, the ongoing struggle of someone who discovered too late that grass isn't greener on the other side, just different shades of disappointment. I built my happiness on firmer ground this time, with a woman who chose me every day without needing permission to love someone else.